This is an extremely dangerous act that's being performed. It only takes that one time or that one incident, you're going to take somebody's life. But right now, we're advising these drivers that we're stopping and contacting the dangers that it's going to cause and that their behavior could kill somebody. And, their state will charge somebody with murder if they are involved in this type of activity and kill somebody.
Welcome to Crime News Insider. This is Jorge Del Portillo, and with me as always is Lori Hoff. How you doing, Lori?
I'm doing well. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you too. Today's episode, we're going to discuss a dangerous trend that is happening across the country called sideshows or street takeovers, where numerous cars block an intersection and perform dangerous stunts. A lot of people have posted it on social media. What is going on? They hear these loud noises, and we've just seen this across the country in the news.
Yeah, I think that's the danger, perhaps, of social media, right? Where something takes off in one part of the country, we're now seeing it pop up in other parts of the country, largely because of social media, I think. But, we've always had street racing, right, Jorge. I mean, we've always seen that. And that's always dangerous. We prosecute street racing. We've seen, deadly results from street racing. But this is a little different.
Right. This is something new that we haven't seen. It pretty much popped up last year, but recently, a couple of days ago in Bristol, Connecticut, that was in the news. And recently here in Southern California, in LA, a man was apparently beaten during a street takeover in South LA. And also just a little bit ago, 2 women died who were in a car that were fleeing one of these street takeovers. And it's happening here in San Diego. According to an NBC report, the San Diego Police Department have identified 172 people or vehicles that were involved in these street takeovers. So with us to talk about this issue is Sergeant John Ampol from the San Diego Police Department. Sergeant John Ampol, welcome to the podcast. How are you?
Thank you. I'm doing good. How are you?
Good. So can you tell our audience, what are these street takeovers and why are they so dangerous?
Well, I think you did a pretty good job explaining it. However, it is basically an exhibition of speed. It's an informal demonstration of vehicle stunts that include a large number of people and vehicles. And what the people do, the spectators, is they're actually part of the takeover. They form a rudimentary circle, which we call pit. And they circle vehicles, usually in the intersection or even in a parking lot. And inside that pit, you have vehicles that are doing those sideshow maneuvers, such as donuts, the burnouts, we call ghost riding, where they'll be hanging outside the window, holding onto the steering wheel as a car is doing the donuts. And they do multiple burnouts and sideshow activity in tandem with multiple vehicles. And their goal is to get as close to the pedestrians that are standing around the road as possible while they're swinging the car.
Wait, I'm sorry. So the goal is to get as close as you can to the pedestrians that are standing by?
Well, they want to have it nice and close for the videos, and they tell people to stand back. But unfortunately, everybody wants to be that next social media sensation. So everybody's out there, they're focusing on their phones and not the cars. And just like any vehicle that's sitting there, when you're losing traction, the car is going to swing left or right, depending on the direction they're going. And we see numerous spectators and sometimes innocent bystanders are getting hit during these maneuvers.
I've seen some videos where they're just jumping out of the way at the last second. So dangerous.
And not only that, they some of the spectators, part of their goal is also to run between the cars that are what they call swinging, and run into the center of the pit. They're setting off fireworks. There are individuals that will stand in the path of that swinging car and try to jump over the vehicle, the hood or the trunk, as the vehicle is swinging by them. So numerous videos on that. And I've been on the department for over 17 years. And when I first started learning about the street racing, that's all it was. It was a point A to point B, and this is what they were street racing on. A couple of years ago, the department asked me to start crafting some training in regards to this new sideshow, which is not really new overall. It started off in the Bay Area in LA, and those 2 cities will argue who started it. Now we're seeing it nationwide. And a lot of it started up from the pandemic, we feel. Everything was locked down and closed. We started seeing a lot of the car shows popping up And, many of the car shows are, they're not nefarious. They were just people looking for a being or belonging. But now you have that element that has derived from that. And we're starting to see these sideshows.
Sergeant, we've talked about why it's dangerous for pedestrians and onlookers. It seems like there's some other maybe unintended dangers or consequences for these types of events. What else have you seen emerge or come about because of these types of takeovers?
Well, ironically, say that we have definitely uncovered a nexus of separate crimes that are coming from these groups. The biggest thing we're seeing, obviously, is the DUIs, the driving under the influence of either alcohol or narcotics. Many of their social media videos show them actively drinking alcohol and or doing narcotics. We're also seeing a big trend with something they call the purple drink, where they're mixing cough syrup codeine with soda.
Lean.
That's big.
There you go.
And not only that, we were seeing, a whole nexus of other crimes that are flowing from these takeover crowds. And that can include fraud, whether it's insurance fraud, court fraud, or DMV fraud, where they're registering their vehicles fraudulently. They're putting fake addresses or they're bypassing the smog requirements, because most of these vehicles, in order to either race or perform these maneuvers, they have to make modifications to their car for them to successfully do this. And those modifications alone cause an issue with the emissions. So it's becoming more polluting vehicles out there, and they're bypassing those smog requirements.
And is there like this crossover then you're seeing basically, modified cars, race cars, like the typical cars that we would see that are modified to race are the type of cars that we're seeing doing these stunts?
Right. So, the biggest, we're, especially for us who've been around for a while, we identify all of them as street racers, and they're not. It's really a street scene problem. There's three separate factions that we're seeing from this community. You have one, the typical street racers, the one who are out there, they're betting for, point A to point B, or that, that distance between point A to point B to race for money or for fun. Then you have the takeover crews, the sideshows. Takeover actually comes from a club in Los Angeles. It's called Takeover, and it caught. So it's really a sideshow takeover when they take over the intersection. And then you have the park and chills, which are the car clubs. And, there's animosity between the three of them, the three different clubs. There's issues from time to time between them. And then there's separate clubs within that culture itself. So here in San Diego, we have about 3 or 4 well-known car clubs, quote, that participate in that sideshow activity.
I want to know, when I've seen a couple of these videos, and I haven't seen all of them the way that you have, but there's a lot of people that show up. How do they organize? How do they know that this is even happening?
Well, social media. Definitely, it's the generational age where, they communicate via social media platforms, and there's several, and they're arranged. So unless you're actively or understanding how they work their social media platforms, it's tough to know when they're going to pop it up, and they're extremely careful. They don't post addresses or locations up to the point where it's going to happen. So it's really hard for some law enforcement agencies to prepare for something like that. And they know our area, they know the response that's going on in the city. So we have crafted a different enforcement option and tool to hopefully educate and stop the behavior.
And when you use the term takeover, you were saying takeover an intersection. This is just a regular intersection where people might encounter that they literally take over by forming. I don't know. Do they block traffic? They stop everyone from entering that intersection so they could do these maneuvers and stunts in this pit?
Correct. So what they do is they identify an intersection they're going to go to, and once they have enough spectators that are there standing on the sidewalk, direction of whoever's running that sideshow or takeover is going to be, okay, block it off, shut down the intersection. Mm-hmm. And what the spectators do, they'll start forming a circle around the intersection, blocking any and all traffic. And they use their cars too. So they'll block the roadways, they'll stop their cars, they'll get out, which leaves no room for any other uninvolved motorists to get around. And then it's really hard for law enforcement then to also get access to the pit.
So, Sergeant Ampol, if someone sees these takeovers and they call the police, what do you do as a sergeant of, with you and your police officers? How do you respond to these, and what's the danger like to you? Because I imagine there's a lot of people there.
It's very dangerous for officers that are responding to this. There's when you have a large group like this, there is animosity and violence towards responding officers. We have numerous incidents where rocks and bottles, even the fireworks, are being thrown at officers responding to the scene, and it's quite typical. So this is not something you're just going to send one or two officers in. So when people do call 911 to report this, it's being monitored. We're following it. We are monitoring it. We just have to be a little more careful how we respond to it. Just understand that when you have 200-300 people standing in the roadway, to send one or two officers just to deal with that alone is extremely dangerous. So we just ask people to keep calling the police, report these incidents. Don't get involved. Don't go outside. We don't want anybody getting injured or hurt. Don't confront them. Just call law enforcement. And if you are able to see a license plate from the safety of your home, or a description of the cars, this is what's really good information to pass to the dispatchers, because we may not be able to effect an arrest right then and there, but we are watching this, we're monitoring it, and we are doing follow-up investigations for prosecution.
Yeah, it makes sense. Like, don't get involved. It could turn very bad very quickly, it seems. And I don't know, there's a lot that could go wrong, especially with that many people out there. So yeah, thank you. That's good advice.
And this is also happening in neighborhoods, if I'm not mistaken. I mean, I've seen apartment complexes nearby. I've seen people who live and watch it happen right beneath them.
Yeah, this isn't where they're going to go off into some area that's dark and desolate. They want to go somewhere where they're going to get that media attention. That's part of the thrill. And a lot of the times when this stuff makes social media and their acts make the news broadcasts, they make music videos out of it. So they start splicing in some of the news broadcasts that come out, and they're making their music videos and then videos of their vehicles involved in this type of behavior. So they actually thrive on the attention that they're getting. There are options for people who want to perform these stunts that are on a closed court or closed track. Viejas has it. Verona, I think sometimes they have a small area that they allow them to do it. And there's a few places up in Orange County. However, the real thrill is the fact that they're able to do this on a city street. They get the attention out of it.
Yeah. And speaking of attention, I mean, it's not like it's a secret when they're out there. And in fact, they're frequently setting off fireworks, right? I mean, they want the attention. They're seeking the attention. So now that they've caught our attention, what are the laws out there that we can use to hold some of these people accountable for some of these crimes?
Well, there's several laws in the book. The problem is actually identifying who is involved and be able to push forth with the prosecution. Obviously, the driving itself, it's a violation of the vehicle code. So there's sections that are for reckless driving and for exhibition of speed. I know the state right now is codifying language to identify or define what a sideshow is. And I know that they're looking at further laws to increase the penalty for the behavior. Other things that they're doing is it is vandalism. They're out there on the roadway. The one intersection they hit downtown at Pacific Highway and Broadway, which is right there in the heart of downtown, just from that one night takeover, the cost for the city to repair that's well over $12,000.
Wow.
So a small one-lane intersection, for them to burn up the limit lines and the paint that's on the road, that's about an $1,800 fix. And as that roadway and the geometry, the complexity of the roadway increases, so does the cost. And another example is Genesee up near UTC, where they did that takeover right in front of the mall under the trolley tracks. That was about an $8,000 repair. Same with the recent one over on Market and Ocean View and 40th Street. That one cost about $3,500. They repaired it and then they hit it again 3 days later. So the city is really incurring a heavy cost and especially with the limit lines and the pedestrian crosswalks, they have to be well marked. So they're out there constantly repainting these roadways, and it's costing, the city and the taxpayers money.
What is your department doing to respond, to deal with this increase?
Right now, our goal is to identify a majority of these drivers that are participating. As you're aware that we wrote, we're up to about 58 affidavits right now, where we got court orders to seize vehicles. that are involved. And we're hoping that's going to educate some of the younger drivers. We've had a couple of hearings with the court, and some of the parents showed up, and they were completely unaware that their of age child that's operating their car is doing these stunts in the road.
So, I mean, part of the messaging needs to go out to our high schools and our parents and our teachers for education on what the unintended dangers are, frankly, for this type of behavior.
I agree 100%. We also we're looking at pursuing investigations and prosecution into that felony vandalism for the fraud against the court, against the insurance companies. We're seeing incidents where they're involved in a collision and they make a fraudulent report to the insurance company to get their cars repaired, because a lot of these vehicles that are involved in the sideshows, it's not unusual to see at least one person or another vehicle collide during these events. And that's pretty much on whatever basis they're doing this, especially when it's a sideshow takeover.
And have you seen violence at some of these events?
Correct. We've had incidents where they've gotten into a fight with either each other or with uninvolved motorists or pedestrians.
Well, I really appreciate you coming on to tell us about this growing concern that we have in San Diego. What's the message? I mean, this is sort of your opportunity to give the public service announcement to those listening here in San Diego and to our listeners throughout the country about the dangers. And what would you say about that?
Exactly that. This is an extremely dangerous act that's being performed. It only takes that one time or that one incident, you're going to take somebody's life. But right now, we're advising these drivers that we're stopping and contacting the dangers that it's going to cause, and that their behavior could kill somebody. And, the state will charge somebody with murder if they are involved in this type of activity and kill somebody. So I'm hoping that, at least with the enforcement we're doing now and the awareness that we're pushing out to the public, that not only are the people who are involved, but the families that may have an idea or are seeing their vehicles being modified to be used like this, that they step in and try to make a change before somebody else is killed or seriously hurt.
Fantastic message. So yes, we could charge you with the crime. We could charge you with reckless driving. We could seize your car. We could even charge you with homicide if it comes to that. Sergeant John Ampol with the San Diego Police Department, thank you so much. I really appreciate your time.
All right, thank you. Appreciate your time.
Oh, but one final thing. You're not going to get off.
You think you're done, yes, but you're not.
You have to take Jorge's quiz. So each episode, we look at the laws on the books where 2 are real, 1 is fake, and see if you could guess which one is the fake. The theme is street laws or highway laws, traffic laws. Very apropos.
Okay.
You work at the traffic division?
Currently, correct.
Oh, perfect. This will be a no-brainer for you then. So here we go. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. A, in Nevada, it's illegal to ride a camel on the highway. B, in Alabama, it's illegal to ride a motorcycle without wearing shoes. And C, in Vermont, it's illegal to ride a snowmobile on the highway. 2 are real, 1 is fake, and see if you could guess which one is the fake. Sergeant John Ampol.
It's a good one, Jorge.
Yeah, 2 are actually real. So Sergeant Ampol, if you, I will ask you to go first since you are our resident expert.
Well, it's kind of cheating a little bit. This is out of state. But
I know.
I spent 24 years in the military, so I got to go around a lot of states. So I know that the Alabama one is real.
There we go.
Oh, no, I should have Lori go first.
There we go.
And then
I got a ringer here.
So I'm trying to think of the safety aspect. I'm actually from the Northeast. I'm from New York originally. So I know that in Maine, you could ride a snowmobile because most of the time, if the roads got snow on it, you could ride it. The camel one, I've never heard of that one before, but I'm assuming it's going to be a safety issue for the camel on the roadway because cars are going to still be on there. So my guess, I know I got the lieutenant in my ear, but my guess is going to be that's my guess.
Camel. Okay, that's A. Lori, what do you think?
Oh, I was torn between the camel and the snowmobile because obviously people are going to try to ride their motorcycles without shoes in Alabama. So,
can a camel ride a snowmobile in Vermont?
I'm gonna. Well, obviously, I'm agreeing with the ringer here that A, camel, false.
Okay, so you're both going in on A. Let's start with B. In Alabama, it's illegal to ride a motorcycle without wearing shoes. Both of you think this one is real, and this one is a law on the books. It's section 32(5)(a) 245B. No person shall operate or ride upon a motorcycle or motor-driven cycle unless he or she is wearing shoes. There you go. Kind of makes sense.
There we go. Easy.
It must have been a huge problem where they actually had to pass it at the legislature. People were losing their feet. All right. So let's go to C. In Vermont, it's illegal to ride a snowmobile on the highway. Both of you think this one is real, and this one is real. You guys are correct. Oh. Good job. This is 23 Vermont statutes or VSA 3206. A snowmobile shall not be operated on a public highway unless it's not being maintained and plowed for use by a motor vehicle. So during the snow season. So you can ride it, I guess, if it's not plowed, which is interesting.
I got that answer in Maine. So I was kind of hoping that Vermont was going to be the same way. So
yeah, it sounds like it's a thing. Yeah, there's a lot of rules with snowmobiles over there. So it kind of makes sense. That all means A, in Nevada, it's illegal to ride a camel on the highway. That one is the fake. But if you go on the internet, I went on the internet for weird traffic laws, everyone says it's illegal to ride a camel on the highway in Nevada. But I look up the Nevada revised statutes. I look up all the laws. Nope. It looks like it's an internet rumor. There's one site that said it was illegal in 1875 because they had imported a bunch of camels because they would be good in the desert. And then it ended up being bad for their hooves walking on the specific kind of dirt here. And there was a bunch of camels just dying out in the desert. So supposedly they passed a law, but I never found a law. I think it's an internet rumor. So go ahead and ride your camel on the highway next time you go to Vegas.
That is good to know.
Good job, Sergeant Ampol. Thank you so much for joining the podcast and educating our listeners about this growing trend. Appreciate it.
I have to thank you very much for having me.
Appreciate it. Lori, thank you as always.
Oh, it was a pleasure.
All right. And until next time, this is the Crime News Insider Podcast.
Expressed on this podcast are solely of the speakers and do not reflect the views of the Deputy DA Association nor the District Attorney. Questions and comments can be sent to crimenewsinsider@gmail.com. Please leave a rating and review on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you listen to this show. Remember to follow us on Facebook and Twitter. Our Twitter handle is @SanDiegoDDAs. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.